And there's three guides I really want you to pay attention to because I think they're the ones that you'll come back to over and over. These three guides that you'll use on a regular basis are the Passage Guide, the Bible Word Study Guide, and the Exegetical Guide. Now let's take a quick look at what each one of these does. Just for maybe a consistent process here, I think the Exegetical Guide is probably one of the best ones to start with. So I'm going to go ahead and click Exegetical Guide, and we'll see what happens. So in my layout now, you'll see I have my Bible on the right, and I've got an Exegetical Guide open on the left. Now, you can link guides to your Bible. I definitely recommend that with the Bible Word Study Guide, like we did in the last training. But in this one, I just like to type my passage into the Exegetical Guide so it just stays, it's not changing with my Bible if I ever change verses. So for the Exegetical Guide, let's say we're studying 1 Corinthians 10, let's say 1 through 13. I'm going to type it in the Exegetical Guide and hit return. Now the Exegetical Guide is going to load with an incredible amount of information designed to help me to study really the original languages of the text. So when you think about the Exegetical Guide, think original languages. For example, you'll see the very first section we get here is our textual variants section, which is going to help us find our apparatuses, the various editions of the text, the Greek or the Hebrew text, ancient versions. If you've got things like the Vulgate, you may have, different languages, Syriac, something like that. Online manuscripts, if you want to go take a look at the manuscripts of your text that you're studying that are housed around the world, you can click these images and take a look at them online. Again, this section is designed for text criticism. The next section is called Word by Word. This is going to go word by word through your entire passage and break down every word based upon usage. So you're going to find morphology here. You'll find syntactic force, or how the word's being used, and you'll also find links directly to your lexicons for each of these words. Okay, below that you'll find grammatical constructions, which gets into all kinds of unique constructions in the text that you may want to pay attention to, you may want to run searches on, and again, it just keeps getting better and better as you move along. I think the last couple of sections here I'll just mention briefly. Important words in the Exegetical Guide is going to give you insight into the most important words for you to study and pay attention to in your passage. And these are actually ranked by how often these words are discussed in the commentary literature. So I can expand and find all the places where it's used here in my passage, and then from there I could click on this particular Greek word and actually run a Bible word study guide on it and study the text. The next section I'll mention, lemma in passage. This is a really powerful section that's going to actually help you find where your commentaries discuss keywords in your text. So for baptizo here, I can find exactly where baptizo is mentioned in my commentary type literature. And it really just depends on what kind of commentaries you have. If you don't have a lot of technical commentaries, you're not going to find a lot of information like this in them. But if you have technical commentaries, this is going to be loaded with research on those words found, again, in commentaries. So that's your Exegetical Guide. If you're studying the original languages, this is a great place to start. Now, the second guide I mentioned, we saw in our previous video. I'll slow down and talk a little bit more about it right now, but that would be the Bible Word Study Guide. In my recommendation to you previously was that you link the Bible Word Study Guide to your Bible. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just for practice. I'm going to click the kebab menu in the top right, better known as the panel menu. I'm going to choose one of my link sets. I usually just use A to keep it simple. And I'm going to do the same for my Bible. Now I'm going to go ahead and head back over to 1 Corinthians 10. So Paul here in 1 Corinthians 10 says, I do not want you to be unaware. If I click the word unaware, my Bible Word Study Guide automatically pulls everything together for me to do my word study. So I can see in the top of the Bible Word Study Guide, the lemma section is showing me what the word is. It's giving me pronunciation, transliteration. It's giving me a list of the lexicons I have where I can look the word up if I would like to. morphology charts to give me a visual breakdown of the different ways this word is, the different forms of this word used in the Bible. And then again, the translation section is really the section that represents kind of the heart of word study, which is I want to find all the places where this word is translated in my Bible. I want to know the different ways my Bible translates this word. And if I click the center of the translation ring, that's going to give me a breakdown to analyze all that usage. Now, I will mention, just so you're aware, if you put your cursor at the top of that translation section, right to the right of the word translation, you'll see mine says NIV. So that's telling me the analysis you're seeing on my screen is based on the NIV. If I want to change that, I just take my cursor to the right to where it says settings, and I switch my Bible version. And that will change the analysis. It will show me the ESV probably translates this word slightly different than the NIV, and this will give me awareness of those changes. Now, for the sake of time, we're not going to go through the entire Bible Word Study Guide, but I want, especially for those of you that are doing more advanced study, the Bible Word Study Guide is a goldmine of information. You'll just want to look through it and take a closer look. It's pretty incredible. Now, I will mention before we leave the Bible Word Study Guide, you do have a limit in passage here in the Bible Word Study Guide, and that's going to help narrow down just places where the commentators discuss a specific word. Okay, so I can find all the places where this specific word that we're studying here is used in my various commentary literature. Logos has already done all that research. Now, a big question that I hear a lot is, how would I run some searches, in different types of literature, not just New Testament or Old Testament? And you can see here that there's a textual searches section in the Bible Word Study Guide that shows me how to search for this word in the Septuagint, or how to search for it in the Apostolic Fathers. And all we would have to do is just simply click on one of these, and that search would run for us, and we could study the usage of that word in literature outside of the New Testament or Old Testament also. Okay, so that's your Bible Word Study Guide. And then the third guide I think that you'll use on a regular basis will be the Passage Guide. Now, I saved this one for last because the Passage Guide kind of gets outside of exegesis and gets also into comparison, in theology. So what have the commentators said? What do the systematic theologians say about our text? And so if I click Passage Guide, again, you can type in your passage in the top left, 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 13. And the Passage Guide you'll find, if you have a slower computer, it might take a while to load because it has just an incredible amount of content in it. But you can see here at the very top, I have a list of all the commentaries that I have that relate to this specific passage that we're studying. You'll find journal articles here if you have any journals in your Logos library. Parallel passages is going to help you identify New Testament use of the Old Testament, or even you can see here parallel passages, for example, in the Synoptic Gospels or in the Pauline letters, just depending upon what you're studying. You have cross references, then you have this really powerful, important passages section. This is really good for studying intertextuality, how the Bible is intersecting with other parts of the Bible. And so Logos is doing a really helpful analysis on other passages that kind of intersect in different ways with what you're studying. Again, we have important words. We saw that in the exegetical guide. We have an analysis of biblical places and people and things in our text. And what I want you to see, if I scroll down a little bit further, again, Logos is going to give you so much content. You want to make sure and note the ancient literature section. The reason why this is because what Logos has done is it's actually gone through the writings of the early church fathers, and it has found all the places where they quote or allude to your passage, or maybe even share a key topical connection. And so you can really easily, by using the ancient literature section, if you have the writings of the early church fathers, simply click on these links and begin to read and see how the earliest commentators talked about your passage. Now, I also want to mention quickly the biblical theologies and systematic theologies sections. If you have biblical theologies or systematic theologies in your Logos library, the passage guide will go ahead and look up in those theologies where your passage is discussed. So if we look under Christology, I can see the places where my systematic theologies discuss 1 Corinthians 10 in relation to their discussion of Christology. So very powerful, because it helps us consider how we move from our text in its original context to what that means for us and what we believe in these different categories of theology. And again, all of that is done for us in the exegetical guide, Bible word study guide, and the passage guide. So if you know how to use those 3 guides, it will be a game changer for you. You just don't want to forget about them because, man, they're incredibly powerful and helpful. Now that we understand all that, we can talk about workflows. So workflows are different because the traditional guides we just looked at, they're designed just to give you a lot of information, to mine lots of data and put it at your fingertips quickly. Workflows are designed to do that, but they're really designed even more so to walk you through a process. So in other words, the passage guide doesn't teach you how to study a passage, it just gives you information. Workflows are different. They actually teach you step by step how to carry out a certain type of study, right? And you can see there's all kinds of different workflows. So maybe you're preparing a sermon, you're studying through a passage, so passage exegesis, or you're doing a word study. You have workflows to walk you step by step through that. Let's take a quick look at passage exegesis. I'm going to go ahead and just click on that. When the workflow opens, all I need to do is type my passage in the top left, 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 13, and it'll take a second, and now it has built a step-by-step study guide for me that teaches me how to walk through this passage using Logos. So you may say, okay, well, how do I read the passage multiple times? It'll tell you what you do. It'll give you links to click. And in this case, I click the link and it will open up my compare Bible versions and give me some questions. And then I have explore the larger context. Well, how do I do that? Well, this tells me to use the propositional outlines visual filter, or in this case, to use the compare pericopes tool. So now that my passage analysis tool has opened up to compare pericopes, I can actually see the boundaries of my passage and how various Bible versions have sort of divided the text up into pericopes or passages. So in other words, the whole point of a workflow is to give you something that not only gives you information, but actually walks you step by step through a certain type of study. Okay, so that's it for the guides menu. We're going to keep moving.